I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here we are. My name's Dave, and I'm in my early 40s. Been married to Lisa for about 7 years now. Things weren't perfect, but I thought we had a solid life. We had good jobs, a cozy house, and a kid on the way. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about her. That was until last month when everything started to unravel. It all started with the kitchen remodel. Lisa had been nagging me for months about it, saying the kitchen was outdated and she wanted something modern and sleek. I was all in, spent weekends pulling out old cabinets, picking out new appliances, and watching her flip through endless design magazines. She was insistent on doing a professional job, and I was happy to let her handle it, trusting her taste. We hired a local renovator, Mark, who came highly recommended. At first, everything seemed fine, but I started noticing strange things. Lisa became more secretive than usual. She'd disappear for longer than she should during the day, claiming she was reviewing design choices or meeting with the contractor. I figured she was just obsessed with making everything perfect, but something about the way she'd check her phone constantly and get defensive when I asked questions struck me as odd. Still, I let it slide, chalking it up to her being typical high-maintenance wife behavior. Then came the day I went to the hardware store. I told Lisa I needed to pick up some supplies for the remodel and left early. When I got back, I expected to see her in the kitchen, maybe chatting with Mark or inspecting the work. But instead, I found her on the patio with her phone in hand, looking a little too casual. She quickly tried to hide it when I entered, which was strange because she usually didn't care if I saw her messing with her phone. That's when I noticed her acting nervous, almost guilty. Over the next few days, little things kept catching my eye. She'd always have an excuse for why she was on her phone in the middle of the day, reviewing design ideas or talking to the contractor, but I started noticing a pattern. She'd be texting a lot and her replies sometimes looked inappropriate. She'd laugh at something, then quickly lock her phone. One night I looked over her shoulder and saw a message pop up that made my stomach drop. "Can't wait to see you again. It's been too long." She immediately snapped her phone shut and shot me a glare, saying I was being paranoid. The worst part, the contractor, Mark, was always there during the remodel and I trusted him, or at least I wanted to. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I started watching her more carefully, waiting for a sign, any sign. The fact that she was lying so much about the reviewing design choices and meeting the contractor made me suspicious. How could she be so reckless? I mean, she was caught lying about being at the hardware store that day when I saw her texting someone and then hiding her phone. Then I noticed it. Her behavior changed around Mark. She'd be overly friendly, flirtatious even, and I heard from a neighbor that she was having long talks with him during work hours. I didn't want to believe it, but the pieces were falling into place. Her attitude became bitchy and dismissive when I asked about the remodel or her plans. She'd roll her eyes, snap at me, and criticize everything I did. That's when I realized she was probably cheating on me with Mark, probably behind that temporary wall we built for the new kitchen while I was out getting supplies. I kept everything inside, not wanting to blow up prematurely, but the truth was staring me right in the face. She lied, she cheated, and she betrayed me in a way I'd never imagined. The worst part, I was supposed to trust her. I thought we had a good thing. Now I was just left with a sick feeling in my stomach, wondering how long she'd been lying and who else she'd been hiding. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how I'd handle it or what would happen next. All I knew is I wasn't going to let her get away with it without a fight. I wasn't someone who liked to jump to conclusions, but with Lisa, it felt different. Something about her attitude shift, the secretive phone habits, the way she'd get defensive when I looked at her. This wasn't just stress about the remodel or her typical bitchy attitude. It was something worse. I started playing everything over in my head, trying to piece it all together, and honestly, I couldn't ignore that gut feeling anymore. One evening, I came home early from work. I had decided I'd finally get some answers. I knew she'd be at the house, probably pretending to be busy with design choices, or whatever bullshit she'd come up with this time. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her car parked out front, which wasn't unusual, but what caught my eye was that her phone was on the porch table face down. That was odd because she always kept it with her, especially lately. I hesitated for a second, then grabbed her phone and went inside. The house was eerily quiet. I headed straight for the kitchen where I knew she'd be. Sure enough, she was in the dining area, pretending to look at some fabric swatches but clearly distracted. I sat down across from her, holding her phone in my hand. "Lisa," I started, my voice low but steady. "Who's this? Who have you been texting?" I turned the screen toward her. It was the message I'd seen before, the one about not waiting long enough. Her face went pale and she stiffened. "Who told you about that?" She snapped, trying to sound annoyed but failing. "That's not what you think, you're overreacting." I looked at her, feeling a mixture of anger and hurt. "You've been lying to me. I see how you act around Mark, how you avoid me, how you're always on that phone. Tell me the truth. Are you cheating on me?" She looked at me with contempt, scoffing. "Oh, please, I'm not cheating, Dave. You're just paranoid. Mark, just here to do the remodel, and I've been reviewing some design ideas, okay? That's all, nothing more." I didn't buy it. I knew her too well. Her eyes darted around and her tone was defensive, dismissive. It was obvious she was lying through her teeth. The thing is, I could see the guilt in her eyes. She was trying to convince herself as much as she was trying to convince me. I pushed further. "I saw the messages. I saw how you look at him when you think I'm not paying attention. You're screwing him, aren't you?" Her expression hardened. "You're crazy. You think I'd do something like that? You're just jealous because I'm paying attention to my project. Maybe I should just leave if you're going to accuse me of everything." That's when I snapped. I wasn't about to let her gaslight me anymore. I told her I knew she was lying, that I had proof from the text messages, the secret meeting times, the way she'd disappeared during the day. Her face twisted with anger and she yelled at me, calling me insecure and accusing me of spying on her. Like I said, she was a bitchy, manipulative woman who knew how to twist everything. I felt a cold wave of disappointment wash over me. All those years I thought I knew her. Turns out I was just fooling myself. She'd been cheating on me behind my back with Mark, probably for months. I asked her outright if she loved him or if she was just using him to get her way, but she refused to answer. Instead, she looked at me with that condescending smirk, as if I was the one making a fool of myself. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, the accusations, her sneaky behavior, her lies. I felt betrayed, angry and shattered all at once. How could she do this to me, to us? I'd given her everything, my time, my trust, my love, and this is how she repaid me. It was like a punch to the gut, and I knew deep down my life was about to change forever. I didn't want to be a cuckold. I didn't want to be the guy who got played for a fool. I decided I had to do something to make her regret messing with me. I wasn't sure exactly what that was yet, but I knew I needed a plan. One thing was clear. This was just the beginning of a very rough road. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what I was going to do. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand answers, and just tear her apart. But another part, more cold, calculating, knew I had to be smart about this. I couldn't just blow up and make things worse. I had to think about how to get what I needed, how to catch her in the act, and most importantly, how to protect myself emotionally. I decided to do some digging. I started by reviewing her phone more thoroughly. I knew I'd seen enough the night before, but I needed solid proof. I went into her messages, her call logs, her social media. She had a pattern: hidden messages, deleted conversations, quick replies to Mark but no one else. It was obvious she was hiding something, but I needed more than just texts, so I made a plan. I set up a hidden app on her phone, a keylogger of sorts that would record her messages and calls without her knowing. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't keep living like this in the dark, wondering when she'd slip up again. I also decided to follow her around, see where she went during her supposed design meetings. It was embarrassing, but necessary. Over the next few days, my suspicions were confirmed. She was meeting Mark during the hours she claimed to be reviewing design choices. I saw her sneaking out of the house, heading to some nearby coffee shop or parking lot. I even managed to get photos, her walking into a motel late at night, her hands in Her pockets, her head down. I felt rage boiling up. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act. She'd come home, act like everything was normal, and give me those fake smiles. But I knew better. I could see the cracks in her story, the nervousness when she thought I wasn't watching. Every day I felt this mixture of anger and heartbreak grow stronger. I was hurt, yes, but also furious. Furious that she thought she could get away with this, that she could cheat on me behind my back and lie to my face. One evening I decided to push her further. I confronted her again, this time with more evidence. I showed her the photos I'd taken, the secret logs I'd been recording. She froze when she saw the pictures of her sneaking out, her phone in hand. Her face turned a shade paler and she started stammering. I asked her directly if she loved him, if she'd been sleeping with him, if she'd been planning this for months. She denied everything at first, then started throwing out ridiculous excuses. "It's just sex," she said, sneering. "You think I'd be faithful to you forever, please? Mark's just a guy who helps with the remodel, nothing serious." I looked right into her eyes and I saw the lie. She was lying through her teeth. She wanted me to believe she was just screwing around with some contractor, but I knew better. This wasn't just about sex. This was about betrayal at a level I'd never expected. Her reaction was so typical, bitchy, defensive, dismissive. She insisted she was reviewing design choices, that she was just venting frustration, or that I was being paranoid. But I saw her desperation. She knew I had her cornered. I had enough evidence now, and I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of it. In that moment, I felt this strange mix of sadness and resolve. Sad because I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. And resolve because I couldn't let her treat me like a fool anymore. I didn't want to be the guy who got humiliated, who was betrayed and did nothing. I was furious, yes, but also determined to take control of this mess. I knew I couldn't fix everything overnight, but I could start by making her face her actions. That night I sat alone in the dark, looking at all the evidence I'd gathered. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. How did I let this happen? How did I let her lie to me, cheat on me, and then pretend it was nothing? I realized that I was done being naive, done being the guy who looks the other way. If I was going to survive this, I had to be smart, ruthless even. And so I started planning what to do next. I knew I had to decide whether I wanted to fight for us or just walk away and leave it behind. But one thing was clear. I was not going to let her control the narrative anymore. She'd been caught, and now it was her turn to explain herself or face the consequences. Whatever came next would define what kind of man I was going to be from now on. The next few days were a whirlwind. I kept the evidence close to me, reviewing it constantly, trying to decide what my next move should be. I knew I couldn't just come home and pretend everything was normal. She'd see through that. I had to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I didn't want her to spin her way out. I wanted her to own up to everything, and I needed to be prepared for whatever she threw my way. One evening I came home early from work again, just to catch her in the act or at least get her to admit something. I hid in the living room, waiting behind the curtains, phone in hand, ready to record. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, but I couldn't stand the thought of her sneaking around behind my back anymore, especially with Mark. And then I saw her. She slipped out of her room quietly, looking around to make sure no one was watching. She grabbed her purse, checked herself in the mirror for a second, and then headed out the door. I followed her at a distance, keeping to the shadows as she slipped into her car and drove off. I managed to get a few more shots of her parked outside a small motel, her face tense, not even bothering to hide her nervousness anymore. That was it. I had enough. I couldn't allow her to keep lying, keep sneaking around while I played the fool. I waited until she returned home, then confronted her as she stepped in through the door. She looked surprised to see me standing there, glaring. "Show me your phone," I demanded, holding up the pictures I'd taken. "Show me everything. I want to know how long this has been going on." Her eyes flickered with guilt, then she scoffed again. "You're making a scene over nothing," she spat. "I don't have to prove anything to you. I saw you," I said coldly. "Texting Mark, sneaking out, meeting him at that motel. How long has this been going on?" She crossed her arms, trying to act like she didn't care. You're overreacting, Dave. It's just sex, okay? Nothing serious. I was stressed and Mark was just helping with the remodel, that's all. You're being paranoid. I shook my head, feeling the anger boil inside me. You think I'm stupid. I know what's been happening. You've been lying to me for months. Don't lie to my face now. She rolled. Her eyes, her voice rising. You're so insecure. Maybe if you paid more attention instead of accusing me of everything, you'd see I'm not fooling around. You're just jealous because I'm prettier than your boring ass. That was the final straw. I had reached a breaking point. All the love, all the trust I'd given her gone. She was dismissive, bitchy, and completely disrespectful. I felt the weight of the betrayal crushing me, the humiliation of her blatant lies burning in my mind. How could she talk about me like that after what she'd done? I wanted to scream, but I kept my voice calm. You're done, I told her. I can't stay with someone who treats me like this. I don't want a wife who cheats and then calls me insecure because I found out. We're done. Her face twisted into contempt. Fine, leave then, but you're the one losing out. Mark's better in bed anyway, and I don't have to pretend to love you anymore. That was it. I turned and walked out, my hands trembling with rage and heartbreak. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to get away. From her, away from the lies, the betrayal, and the pain. I spent that night in a hotel trying to process everything that had happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneaking out, her sneering face, her lies. What hurt the most was feeling so powerless. I'd loved her. I'd trusted her. And she'd thrown it all away for some cheap sex with Mark. I kept asking myself why I didn't see it sooner, why I let myself hope that she'd change. But deep down, I knew I was better off without her, even if it meant starting over from nothing. In the cold light of morning, I made a decision. I'd file for divorce. I'd confront Mark, too. He was just as guilty. I'd take back control of my life, rebuild what I could, and finally accept that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people just want to cheat and lie and get away with it. But I wasn't going to be the guy who gets played forever. Not anymore. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, emotional shock, and cold determination. I knew I had to act fast if I was going to get out of this mess with some semblance of dignity. Filing for divorce was the only option that made sense now, no matter how much it hurt to think about ending what we had. I was tired of her lies, her sneers, her dismissiveness. I was done being the fool. I met with a lawyer the next morning. She was sympathetic but firm. We went over everything, proof of her infidelity, the photos, the texts, the secret meetings. I told her I wanted a clean break, full custody of the kid, and enough to make her regret ever messing with me. She nodded, and within a few days the papers were drafted. I signed them, feeling numb but relieved that I was finally taking control. Meanwhile, I started planning the confrontation with Mark. I couldn't just let him walk away without some consequences. I knew where he worked, some dingy mechanic shop, and I decided I'd go there and lay everything out. Not to threaten, but to show him I wasn't some pushover. I had proof, and I was ready to make him regret crossing me. On the day I decided to confront Mark, I woke up with a mixture of adrenaline and dread. I'd rehearsed what I'd say 100 times. I wanted to be calm but firm. I wasn't going to stoop to his level, but I needed him to understand he messed with the wrong guy. I took a deep breath, grabbed the photos and evidence I'd collected, and headed out. The mechanic shop was a dump, exactly as I imagined. I found Mark in a back office, greasy hands, a smug look on his face. He looked up when I walked in, surprised to see me. I didn't waste time with small talk. "Mark," I said, voice steady. "You've been screwing my wife behind my back. I have proof. I want to know why. What the hell were you thinking?" He blinked, caught off guard. "Look, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I was just helping with her stupid remodel." I slammed the photos on the desk. "Don't bullshit me. I have photos of you sneaking into a motel with her. She's been lying to me for months. You think I do know? You think I won't do something about it?" He finally looked a little shaken. "Okay, yeah, we've been messing around, but it was just sex. It wasn't serious. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I stared at him, feeling a surge of anger. "You're a piece of shit. You think sex with her means nothing. You were happy to betray me, to tear my family apart. You're just as guilty as she is." He tried to defend himself, but I cut him off. "Stay away from her. Stay away from my kid." and next time I see you near her or near my house, I'll make sure you regret it." I turned and left, leaving him sitting there shaking his head. I felt a rush of satisfaction mixed with bitterness. I had stood up for myself, confronted him face to face. I wasn't going to let anyone walk all over me anymore. Back home, I started packing my things. I couldn't stay in that house anymore, not after everything. I was just about to leave for good when Lisa called me, her voice trembling. She begged, apologized, claimed she loved me, said she was sorry for everything. But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I told her she had screwed up beyond repair, that I was done. I told her I was filing for divorce, that she was never going to hurt me like this again. She yelled, called me all sorts of names, said I was insecure and jealous, but I just hung up. I knew I had made the right choice, even if it broke my heart. That night I slept in my car, feeling hollow but finally free. I knew I'd have to rebuild, start fresh. I knew I'd have to get used to the idea that the woman I loved had betrayed me so badly. But I also knew I wouldn't let her ruin me. I'd survive this. I'd come out stronger. And someday, I'd find someone who valued me, who respected me. Right now, I just want to say to anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't let anyone mess with you, no matter how convincing their lies are. Because once the truth comes out, there's no going back. And sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to walk away and start over. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. The divorce was filed, the papers signed, and I finally had my freedom back. Still, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like everything I knew was shattered. My trust, my sense of security gone. I'd loved her for years, believed in us, and now I was left with nothing but a deep, gnawing emptiness. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing. I moved out of the house once the legal stuff was settled. No more reminders of her, no more pretending everything was fine. I went through the motions of rebuilding my life, finding a new place to live, and trying to get my head straight. It was slow, agonizing work, but I knew I had to do it. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking about her, about all the times I ignored the signs, about how I never saw the real her beneath the surface. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and even guilt. Guilt for not seeing it sooner, guilt for feeling relieved when it was over. But I also learned something crucial. I'd been naive. I'd trusted too much, and that trust was exploited. What really stuck with me was the lesson I learned about boundaries and respect. No matter how much you love someone, if they betray you repeatedly, if they lie and cheat and dismiss your feelings, you have to walk away, because staying only damages you further. I realized I deserved better, more respect, honesty, and loyalty. I had to stop blaming myself, stop trying to fix what was beyond repair. Looking back, I know I did what I had to do. I confronted her, I gathered proof, I protected myself legally, and I walked away. It was painful but necessary. I don't think I'll ever forget the betrayal, but I've come to accept it as part of my story. It's made me stronger, more cautious, more aware of the people I let into my life. Now, I focus on rebuilding my relationship with my kid, who's too young to understand what happened but who's been my anchor through all this. I want to be a better man for him, for myself. I don't dwell on the past much anymore. I only take from it the lessons I need to move forward. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how much you love someone. Be honest with yourself about what you deserve. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much it hurts, you've got to put yourself first if you want to live with integrity and peace. I don't regret standing up for myself, even if it meant losing everything. Because instead of being the guy who got played, I'm the guy who refused to be a fool anymore. And that's a lesson I'll carry with me forever.